So the reason I asked to reach out to you is because you said you're a fan of Nick Fuentes
Yeah.
of the America First movement. Nick Fuentes, who MSNBC and many people, including myself, would believe is a white supremacist or something to that effect. So
Okay.
my question is, how do you square, uh, or I don't know, how are your what beliefs do you share with Nick Fuentes and the America First movement? I guess.
And first, I don't know if you can see in the background, there's a cross there. So I'm Catholic. Nick. I don't know if you heard of Jesse Lee Peterson, E. Michael Jones. These are all Christian men, and it was around 26, 27. You know, smoking weed and all these things that so many people do. I began to grow tired of it, and I just wanted to find truth. What is this meaning? Why am I always smoking? And I just started to, have some introspection into my life. Like, what am I doing?
And Nick Fuentes provided that for you?
Not that he provided for me, but he was somebody among Jesse Lee Peterson, among E. Michael Jones, Jordan B. Peterson. These were guys who were talking about serious matters in the world, and where I'm from, it's nobody's talking about these
Sure,
things.
sure.
Everybody's just talking about get a job, do your thing, more of that individualist mindset, and being an individual in a kind of sense, it kind of leaves you lonely. And
Sure.
there's always that search of, I think most people go through is like searching to be a part of something,
Yeah,
which I
part
think
of
most people would agree.
community and whatnot. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting you put Jordan Peterson in that same category. Obviously, I think Jordan Peterson has a different message than Nick Fuentes. I guess, okay, let me ask you, I mean, for Fuentes in particular, because Jesse Lee Peterson I'm familiar with, Jordan Peterson I'm always familiar with. Um, my understanding is that Fuentes is a racist in the original term, right? In that, I think he said that what did he say? Black and white people, getting married is degenerate or something like
Hmm.
that. It's like there's no shortage of things he said that uh, provide evidence, let's say, for the claim that he's a bit of a, I don't know, racist. Which I hate using that word because I think it's overblown. But maybe I don't know. How do you square being black and being part of a movement that's uh, allegedly
And
and
I've
fairly
I've heard
considered white
these.
supremacist?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
But I've heard these things from my own race. So it wasn't new to me. It didn't bother me. It's just from a white guy. I hear black
Sure.
people say all the time they want to
Yeah.
stay with their own. I hear Mexicans because I live in a diverse area and there's Hispanics, you have Mexicans, Colombians, Ecuadorians, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Black Americans, Black immigrants that come from Jamaica, Haiti, all these different places. And a lot of them just stick with their own, like the
Right. So,
Koreans.
do you think that's a good thing, or do you think, because it seems like you and I
I
having a
don't.
conversation. I grew up in a pretty diverse area, um, and it's like the idea that the races should be separate or something, or that they shouldn't intermarry, or that they shouldn't, people shouldn't date, people of different races. It's like to me that seems. I think that's backwards, but you think
Mhm.
differently.
Not that I really think it's like backwards. I just think it's been the norm forever. I don't think it's. I don't apply morality to it. I just see it as something that exists, that is real, and it's just what people do. I mean, would you go to like, I don't know. Do you want to be your ancestors and colonize different women, or do you enjoy how you look? I think about these things. It's like, do you like how you look? If you race mix, you're gonna change how your kids look.
Yeah,
They won't have.
I saw a tweet. It had like I think it had 80,000 likes or something like that. I think it was Pat Mahomes had like a kid and the baby was like almost white. And the point of the tweet was like black people who are intermarrying are eventually going to have the melanin kind of removed from their uh, their eventual grandchildren, great grandchildren, and so on. And like there is a part of me that's like, okay, part of me can empathize with the idea that's like, I want my grandchildren to look like me. I don't have that belief, and I think it's extremely backwards to say that people who are in interracial relationships are degenerate or engaging in degeneracy. Which on that topic in particular, because it sounds like you're making the point of it's just how it is.
Yeah.
But what Nick seems to say, and I've listened to some of Nick, but not all of his stuff, and he says that, like, again, interracial dating is degenerate. I mean, would you agree with that? That it's degenerate? Or do you
Like,
think that he's kind of just pushing the envelope and he doesn't really mean it?
um, I don't know. I guess I'd have to like really look at the definition for it
Sure.
because you want to be particular in it. I guess degenerate in some sense would me like unhealthy or something like that. I would assume.
Well, I would use the word degenerate to describe, like, the sexualization of children and whatnot, right? Like, that's degenerate in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure Nick would use the same word to describe the sexualization of children. So to use the same word to describe that as interracial relationships, to me, that's the problem.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I don't know. Like I'm looking at the definition right here, and it
Sure.
says having declined as in function or nature from a formal or original state. So you being the way you are, and then me being the way I am, if we race mix, then you being what you are is no longer
Sure.
there in your kid.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
understand that?
no, that's like, yeah, that's fair. That's a definitional.
I just want to say, like, I want to keep this like in the American context,
Yeah,
knowing
yeah.
the history of America
Sure.
and things like that. Like, there's obvious racial tension because I grew up like, and I don't know, from my side, it's like I grew up listening to people bash white people, like at
Sure.
comedy, sometimes in serious manner, and I don't know, it's kind of refreshing to hear the other side because
Sure, but is the
I see
answer to anti-white racism, which I agree is real, obviously, I think part of the reason that that Nick Fuentes and that whole movement is even has any, what would you say, steam behind it, is because there is, like, even people on the far left will tell you, like, yeah, there's a casual kind of like, oh, you're
it's
white.
obvious,
Yeah,
man.
I
It's
was
obvious.
at dinner with a group of people a while ago, and I think I was one of two white guys, and we went over to their apartment afterwards, and I don't know, I forget what the context was, but we were watching some music video or something like that, and someone started dancing, and one of the guys was like, "That's the whitest thing I've ever seen," and it wasn't like like Bo Burnham making fun of, like, straight white male. He's got that one song, like, that's funny. I can tell that
That was
that's
completely racial.
yeah, but the way the guy said it, it was like vitriolic. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And the whole idea that, like, well, racism is about privilege plus power. It's like, no, it's
I don't
not,
believe
because
that.
exactly, because if
Yeah.
I'm driving down the highway and I'm with, a minority, someone who's not white, and we pass, like, Appalachia with a lot of, people who are poor and addicted to opioids and stuff, and someone looks out the window, and that person looks out the window and says, "Look at all these white trash." I'm like, well, that's not racist because technically they don't occupy a position of power. It's like, that's a joke, right? So
Yeah.
there's
And
definitely
like you've
anti-white
heard that.
racism.
Yeah, I've heard that from like I forgot his name, like Farrakhan and like Khalid
Yeah, sure,
Muhammad.
right.
Like they would say that thing, and I never
Right, but
understood it,
is
and I
the
just thought it
right,
was nonsense.
but is the answer to that to just do the opposite, like to be racist against minorities as a white
It's
person?
No, it's not the answer, but it's certainly going to be a reaction.
Sure, and you're saying that
And
you just find that
I don't
interesting or
know,
entertaining,
like
or
Nick. When I listen to Nick, yeah, because he's funny with it. Like it's not. I don't feel the vitriol like if you would go to like the swamps of Louisiana or
sure,
Alabama.
sure. So what do
You,
you?
you understand?
Yeah. So what? So I might know the answer. What do you think Nick's best quality is?
He's a good orator. Like
Good
he's
order.
able to. Yeah, he's
Is he?
able
Is
to
he? Is he?
articulate.
Is he? Is he funnier than he is a better speaker?
Yeah,
Okay.
and in
Because
some sense, yeah,
yeah,
he's really funny to me.
yeah. Well, like, I think it's like Trump. People say, like, oh, Trump's not funny, because he's doing all these terrible things. It's like, first off, depends on what you're talking about, which are the terrible things. We can have a discussion about that. But to deny that someone is funny or not is a mistake, because like, people, it's like, if people are laughing, like, it's funny, and plenty of people are laughing. I've laughed out loud at Nick Fuentes. He was making some joke about Charlie Kirk, and I hate Charlie Kirk. I hate the strong word. I don't like Charlie Kirk, and Nick Fuentes was making fun of him, and I laughed, and I'm like, okay, he's clearly funny. He's clearly a trickster type guy. And Dave Smith, I think, put it best. He was talking about, like, what the America First movement is doing is like, yeah, they're running around, they're kind of giving the finger to the establishment by, making all these allusions to like white supremacy and stuff. But it's not really about white supremacy. It's about sticking it to the establishment, right? Now,
Yeah, really.
do you think that's the case?
Yeah, largely because, I never cared about any of this, but, it's like the country was majority white, and a lot of white Americans don't like the way the country's turning. And
well, a lot of people in general don't like the way.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like, if you're a politician, who do you, the way I see it is, who do you want more angry, the majority or the minority?
Sure. I guess, yeah, but when it comes to the question of the America First movement and like, is it a racist movement? I mean, would you just agree broadly, like, is Nick Fuentes and the America First movement racist?
I don't think so. No.
You don't think so?
No. And I think what you mean by sticking it to the establishment is just like the status quo. It's like it pushes interracial. And, just 50 years ago, there were people holding signs, keep segregation, black and white
right,
people.
But isn't that what Nick and the America First movement, I'm just going to call them the Groypers to just shorthand. Isn't that what the Groypers are saying now, to go back to separatism and segregation? Like, the reason I hate the far left woke shit is because they're advocating for separating the races in different dorms, and we need to separate white and black people for HR training and stuff like that. It's like,
But
I think that's what the Groypers are just doing, except Andrew Wilson from The Crucible said it best. It's like the Groypers are just leftists with a race preference. It's like...
Yeah, I guess, but the left is more like doing it on like affirmative action and like equity and economically. What we're talking about is just, we know how humans behave. We know people are have an affinity towards people. Just me and you speaking right now, like, I don't speak the same way you do. I can't understand certain things you've gone through because
but that's true of everyone individually, right? Like, it's like, yeah, you're black and I'm white, but like, again, to make any assumptions about, because you're black, you must have experienced these things and you must think these things, and because I'm white, I must have experienced these things and think those things. It's like, that's racist. That's to say that people in different races need to, or naturally separate or naturally have affinity for each other. It's like, in-group bias is always a thing. But I always go with the example of like I have a minor in gender studies, of course, and I went into a class and it was all women except for one dude. It was a black dude with a Bears hat. I'm from Chicago. I'm like, I didn't even think. I just sat down next to him and we hung out and did all our projects together all semester. It's like me and him had more in common because we were male than, and I think there's a far more difference between male and females than there are different races. I think, biological differences between...
Yeah, and I think culture plays a big part, because when I was in high school, I mean, the black kids sat with the black kids, the Colombians sat with the Colombians, sure. The Mexicans sat with the Mexicans, and I've always noticed these things intuitively, but I never really paid attention to it because I was born in the early 90s, and it's like, from day one, we're beat inclusivity. We're all the same. All of this. Sure, but
so, don't you think that's changing? Like, I definitely. I mean, I just moved, so I'm still making friends in my new area. But like, I people from work are black and Indian and Asian and whatnot. It's like the idea that we would not sit together during lunch, or that I would base my associations based on race. Do you still think people do that? Do you think most people do that most of the time? And you could be right. I genuinely don't know. I'm just asking your experience.
I would say, yeah, just because I don't think it's a conscious thing they do. They just do what makes them feel comfortable. Like, if you, like, I don't know where you're from, but Did you grow up
Suburban
in
Chicago, a wealthy suburb of Chicago, which I think Nick
and
Fuentes is from suburban Chicago, and
yeah, he
Charlie
is.
Kirk. I know it's the worst.
And
God damn it, I hate that that's true, but yeah,
I mean, you're going to be more inclined to be around people who are around there, regardless of race, you know.
sure, regardless of race, yeah,
But that's just for you. And like what Nick talks about is like voting patterns nationwide, race on a nationwide level more than, because I'm pretty sure back in like during segregation there would be times where black and white people would come together and I guess break the law on an individual level, but like nationwide there were housing areas and there were areas
yeah,
specifically for
but
whites, specifically for blacks, and there were less crime in each because they were
sure,
white and they were black.
I can. I definitely get that when you look at like macro trends or social trends. That's one conversation. I guess my confusion and my curiosity is, again, like when the Groypers say like race mixing is degenerate. That's less to do with that's not voting patterns. That's not looking at sociological analysis and the Robert Putnam type stuff, diversity. Like to me, that's a very moral.
Yes.
It's immoral in my opinion, but it's a claim about morality, and that's the stuff that I just am like the fact that you and I are talking and being able to exchange it, like you and I simply by being willing to have a conversation are already closer together than the people who would say free speech
Of
is
course.
evil and even though I'm white and you're black, we're both males, so technically we don't have a female perspective, and even if we did have a female perspective, we wouldn't have a transgender perspective.
Yeah, and I
There's
just
people
think
that
I
believe
just
all
think that because men are just more detached and more impersonal. So like we can say things that we agree or disagree, and I don't lash out at you
Right,
just because we
right,
disagree.
right. But so doesn't isn't that one piece of evidence that like beliefs and values are far more important than race? Like race is literally irrelevant as long as we have the same values, right?
In some sense, but like I don't know. Nick was talking about this before. I remember he did a show completely that talked about um interracial marriages, and he talked about the numbers. He talked about that interracial children, mixed race children, higher rates of domestic violence. The kids have higher rates for mental retardation, higher rates for dropouts, higher rates to do drugs, and
I'd definitely have to see
yeah,
those
you'd have to
that
do it.
information.
You'd
I've
have to find that
never
information.
heard that there is any increased risk of like uh, birth defects for people who are in
Well,
interracial
and
relationships.
like from what I've seen, there's a German woman who her father's Nigerian and her mother's a white German woman, and she has I think bone marrow cancer or something of the sort. And because she's mixed race, there's only like 2 or 3% of the world that can donate bone marrow blood to her because she's mixed race. And then
Well,
on Twitter
okay.
a few days ago, I just saw an Italian and Japanese couple who have a child that also has the same issue, and because they're race mixed, they're having
I
problem
think
finding blood
I
and transfusions.
I don't know.
So if
Again, I'd
like
have
just
to hold on, and just to respond,
go
I
ahead.
don't, I don't, I would have to look at all that. I'm taking it for granted that maybe that is what was described. But people who have like rare blood types have trouble finding blood no matter what, and people who have
Is
like
it because they're
kidney
rare blood?
donations. Well, I have no idea
Is
what
it
it is. I don't
is it
think it
just
has
because?
anything to do
No, go
with
ahead.
the fact that they're I mean, the fact that they're mixed race, because again, race is not even a biological concept in a pure way. Obviously, you've got melanin and I don't. But like,
Yeah, but
but it's
like
not like
I mean,
it's not
okay,
like
go
it's not
ahead.
like
I
male and
finish.
female, right? Which are clear biological, distinct categories. Yeah, you've got some intersex overlap, but race is much more amorphous. And yeah, there's people with dark skin and people with white skin, but like I'm pretty sure everyone has like I'm pretty sure my mom's like 2% Nigerian or something like that. Like we're all mixed up to some degree.
Well, Nick broke it down, and I don't have the ability to articulate it as well as he
Sure.
does. But these are things I've just noticed. I mean, is it? I mean, I think it's because these two cancer patients probably have a rare blood type, also they're both mixed race. One's Asian and one's Italian, white, basically European,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
only 2 to 3% of the world. And in my mind, I extrapolate that is if mixed race children are stressing the medical field that it's sad that these kids can't find donations for blood because of what they are. They have to find somebody else who is black and white or Asian and white, and there's not much of these people in the world. So are we going to
Sure.
continue? Are we going to just, hey, for the diversity's sake, with the
Yep.
the violent crime being all out of, I extrapolate to this, are we going to force this upon the medical institutions to promote interracial relationships and have these
Yeah, but hold on.
violent issues?
No, but no one is. This is the, and we can maybe we can move past the interracial relationship thing just for now, but or after this, but.
Yeah, you brought it up.
No, I know. Yeah, no, I know.
that's
No, yeah. And again, I appreciate. I'm glad that we're able to go
You're
back
thinking
and
about
forth.
race mixing, man?
No, listen. I want to keep my options open. Listen, it's not a no one. It's because you were talking about like should we force people to be mix and all that. It's like again the force it seems
Not,
like.
not really forced, but like the media have the biggest influence in the world. Should
Sure.
we continue to influence? Oh, nothing's real. And I mean, before you said that, you don't think. I think race is real. I'm a race realist, like Nick. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just that. It's not your dark. It's like your nose is completely different from mine.
Sure.
Most black people will never have. What do you have? Blue eyes? I can see maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. How many black people do you know with blue eyes? How many black
Other
people
than,
do you know with
what's
thin
the guy in
lips?
Grey's Anatomy?
White people with nappy hair. These are things I just
Sure,
intuitively
sure.
understand.
Yeah, and
you know?
when I said earlier that race is a social construct,
I don't believe that.
no, I know that's wrong on the face of it, depending on how you define social construct and whatnot. Yes, because I think like black and white people have different susceptibilities to different diseases, right? And so, like, I think black
Absolutely.
people are more susceptible to sodium
Like,
or something like that, or
Colon cancer.
yeah, it's sodium
there's-
excess, not sodium. Sodium is salt. Obviously, they're not susceptible to salt, but I think they're more. I think they're at risk of higher blood pressure because of
yeah, colon cancer and other heart diseases.
and
There's a
white
drug-
people are more likely to be alcoholic than black people.
Uh, I don't know.
That's
I
true.
think that's
The rates of alcoholism in whites is higher than it is for blacks.
I think that's just because of culture. Like the Irish. I don't think it's because.
There's, I think there is some
Now, if you would've said
disagreement
that
about whether or
white
not
people-
alcoholism is genetic, but yeah.
If white people are more prone to liver disease, I wouldn't have said anything. But I don't know how true that is.
Sure. I do think susceptibility to addiction has a genetic component. But let's fair enough. We could go. Neither of us are science based, and we could go into it.
Yeah, I still have to read the bell curve, man, just to understand.
Yeah.
fully.
Well, I've listened to. So here's one of my issues. Maybe you can tell me what you think. You have people like Charles Murray who does his research about, there are observable differences between races. He doesn't speculate on the cause, right? And in fact, he says explicitly that culture is a big factor in, different outcomes for different races. And he says it's undeniably big. And he speaks with people like John McWhorter and Glenn Lowry, who are both
great
prominent black
academics.
intellectuals, right? And so,
Yeah, I just saw his interview with Coleman Hughes as well. On
yeah,
YouTube.
Coleman Hughes, yes, right. That was the one I had referenced in my video. And so my perspective is like, look, it's important. Like, we need to talk about facts. We need to talk about reality, and you can do it in a empathetic way, and we can do it kind of carefully. And I don't want the only person to be, even acknowledging like, hey, there is research out here that says this or that, to be, one small group like Nick Fuentes or the Groypers or anything like that. So it needs to be discussed. I guess. So do you ever get like, do you ever get treated poorly by the Groypers, like because you're black, because they're kind of the.
Not in my experience. I mean, we just chop it up and shoot the shit. We'll make fun of each other for our race. Just like when I was in college, I went to like a majority white college, and there was racial jokes, and they were funny. If they were funny, I'd laugh. If they weren't, I wouldn't.
So you don't
But
think that's fair? And look, I get that, and yeah, I was well, yes. When you're friends with people you can of different races, you can make all kinds of jokes that are
yeah,
not socially acceptable outside of that. But that's true with any intimate personal relationship with anyone. It's like that's normal. So I think that it's kind of
so just
absurd.
to add
It's like the Hassan thing, or who said it, where it's like, oh, you can't use racial slurs when you're in private. It's like, well, what if you're talking to someone who's literally the opposite race and you guys are friends? It's like it's such a
yeah,
joke.
I agree.
But so you don't think that like supporting the Groypers, the America First movement, you don't think that would lead to any bad outcomes for you? Like if they had their way.
No, not really, because Nick's always been honest. I can't
Hold
like
on,
with
Nick's
liberals.
always been honest. Hasn't he said explicitly that he hides his real views in like irony and joking, like the cookie thing? How many cookies does it take to bake the oven?
No, I mean like, well, I mean you could say that, but I don't know, man. I guess it's like more of like a spiritual thing. Like I just don't sense animosity from them. I've been to all of his conferences. I've talked to a bunch of guys there. I just don't. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Bryson Gray. There's other
Yeah,
black people, and we just don't sense the animosity, from them. Like if I went to like maybe like Muhammad Ali when he went to the Ku Klux Klan meeting, he probably felt the
sure.
animosity there. I
Yeah,
when I'm
well,
around when I'm around them, I don't. We just understand what's real and what's not. What we don't believe what we've been told growing up is real, and we just want to be real. And I think Nick does that through humor.
well, okay. So it's. I'll just tell you what I'm feeling right now and what I'm thinking right now, because it's
Hmm.
like there's a part of me that
Go
is
ahead.
like, okay, because I'm on YouTube, because I'm talking to an audience, I have an obligation to point out, like, hey, Nick Fuentes is a racist. Like, I have to keep mentioning, like, Nick Fuentes is a racist, right? And I do think I don't really know what to think. You were right that I think he's definitely, he can be funny. He knows how to be funny. You said you don't sense any true animosity in him or his followers, and you would know better than me having been around them for much longer. And I do think it really is kind of an F you to the establishment, trolling kind of mentality that's not like we're not genuinely trying to get a white ethno state. However, I there are definitely elements of the far right that do believe in a like literally want a white ethno state, literally want you like out of the country, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, how would you? Can you kind of, no pun intended? Can you kind of color the situation in terms of like the far right that you would disavow versus like the Groypers or something like that?
Well, like I don't know. I mean, what you're talking about are like you have probably like your racial exterminists, and then you have your people, the people who'll say, okay, I'm okay with black people as long as they're in their country, and then I think you have people who are just practical, normal, whatever they feel, it's it's not logistical. You're not gonna
So
move
you,
a hundred million minorities.
yeah.
There's no
So
way
so
that's
you
gonna
think
happen.
so? There's the uber far right, which are like racial exterminists. Then there's
Yeah,
then there's the separatists, right?
yeah,
And then there's Nick Fuentes, who's
yeah.
you wouldn't even call him a separatist.
Mm, no, not really. Just because it's just like Nick loves black people, man. He loves minorities. I mean, it's
But if
just
that were the case, then why would he call interracial relationships degenerate? That's what I don't get. Like
because
I know people who are in interracial relationships, and if they like, and if one of them is black and they hear Nick Fuentes say, being in an interracial relationship is degenerate, I just think like. Then you say, well, but he loves black people. It's like, well, but does he really? If he's saying that, it's like it's hard for me to square.
man, like, I get what you're saying. When he first said it, I didn't feel anything towards it because I've heard my own people say, "Hey,"
Right?
and like I'm mixed race. Like my mother's a white Hispanic, my father's a black Jamaican man.
Sure.
But
So you're the product of what Nick Fuentes would label as degeneracy, and that
I
doesn't
mean,
bother you?
and so is he.
Sure, he's Hispanic, right?
Yeah, but it's just like I said
So
with the
you don't so is it so you don't really think he means it? You think he's just kind of being funny?
no, I think he means it. No, I think he means it. But I don't see the issue. I don't see the issue behind it because I history show it's just like if you're a student of history, you just understand some things just are the way they are played out through nature.
Yeah, but
People
you could
tend
say
to
this.
stick with it.
Yeah, but like you could like argue that like rape is an evolutionarily evolved phenomenon, and so that that doesn't justify it. Right? Just because something is natural doesn't mean it's moral.
Well, I mean, yeah, I understand that, but it's not like rape in our society is against like someone's will, and that's like an evil act. When you say it, I don't know. It's I'm not an academic, so I don't know how to argue that, but everybody understands
Sure.
like
Well,
rape is
or
immoral because somebody doesn't want it. But
yeah, well, or
like
like
it's
slavery. I mean, slavery was natural for in all over the
yeah,
world for ever.
and I mean
Basically.
it still exists in
Exactly.
places that
Yeah.
aren't inhabited by white people.
Right.
It's inhabited
Right.
in
And
places that there's practice in places that look like me. You understand?
right.
So just to sum it up, it's just like when Nick was telling he called that episode "What's the Deal with Mixed Marriages?" I don't know if you ever watched Seinfeld. I get that. I guess that comes from Seinfeld, like
Sure.
how they
Oh,
how they
what's the
titled
deal with
Seinfeld.
airplane food? Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how he titled it, and he just laid all the. But that would just be a rationalization, and like I said before, if you're just a student of history, you just understand people do better economically. I don't know, I guess it's spiritual as well that people like Nick said themselves when he was on that panel with them, like he'd rather date a white Catholic woman than a white Protestant woman. And then when Abba asked him, would you rather date a black Catholic or a Russian Buddhist? I mean, Russians are white. And I mean, in this world of flesh that we live in, loving yourself also means loving what you are. And like like my mom's white, my dad's black, but look at me. I'm black. I like how I look. I have
Sure.
dimples, I have nice face, and these features come from the black side. And I want to keep these features because I think I look good.
Sure, but
maybe Nick.
do you think? And again, this is just. I mean, look, I'm not trying to resolve any foundational moral disagreements. Like, would it bother you if you like if you had a kid and he didn't necessarily have all the same features but still looked like you in other ways? Like that would bother you? Like, would it bother
If
you
he,
if a few generations from now your kid was more, I don't know, whiter or browner maybe?
Probably not really. Like Muhammad
Right.
Ali. Like Muhammad Ali said that he wants to stay black, and if you look at his grandson now, he's white as you.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, but
No, he
I
said
mean,
bluebirds hang with bluebirds, right? And blackbirds hang with
yeah,
blackbirds and stuff like
and
that.
and
It's
there-
like,
and he said, just on a, that's just it's just what's been the norm. It's not. That's why I don't even attach like a moral thing to it. Cause like when I think of degenerate, you could place the moral the moral compass on it, but I also think of it in like health terms. And when Nick labeled it like that, he was explaining the rationalization for why people should stick together. I mean, the data that he presented was in his favor. The higher rates of all these things, all these ills that society face, and mixed kids also have an identity issue. Like I can't speak Spanish that well, so when I'm with when I'm with my Spanish family, it's hard to. And when I'm with my Jamaican
sure.
family, you know how Jamaicans speak. I don't know if you've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean,
It's broken English, and then I am as an American, as I've been raised American. I speak like you do in some sense, and
yeah, but
I'm
sure. I'm Polish.
I'm at a loss.
I'm Polish, and this isn't true for me, but I have friends who are in the same, but who have family who speak a different language, and are completely white. So like that whole identity thing, it's like that's not. This is I guess my fundamental issue with the Groyper ideology is any valid issue that they might hit on or touch on ultimately is about culture, not race, right? Like I've said before, I would rather, if we were gonna allow 10,000 people into this country, I would rather have 10,000 Cubans or Nigerians or 10,000 people who are like I don't know if Nigeria had a problem with communism. There's definitely countries in Africa that have had issues with Marxism. I think Zimbabwe might be one. So let's say Zimbabwe is. I could be wrong, but the point still stands of I'd rather have 10,000 people who aren't white but hate communism and share my values more than a bunch of like spoiled white Marxist college kids who are like overthrow America and start a communist revolution.
Yeah, I definitely understand that,
Right?
man. And
But isn't that like critical though? Because doesn't that prove that it's not about race, it's about values?
um, I think you have to put it in its context in America. That's why I said like because what you're just saying is like we can go to any country and whatever represents their values. And E. Michael Jones, he's like, and the way he talks about it because he agrees with you, like because he was talking to like Groypers, and and he's a Catholic man, old Catholic man, and Irish German, and he was talking about how the melting pot of America. If someone immigrates into a country after 3 generations, they'll become like a black African woman. If 3 generations deep, she'll be Polish. She'll adopt the language, the culture, and the religion.
Sure.
But and that's something for myself personally. I'm still trying to square out because I've heard Nick say that race, no, culture is a derivative of race as well. More than just religion or environment. It's also stemmed from race. And some of the things he brought up that made it clear may just be surface level, you might say, but like when it comes to like how civilizations are built, most European countries are first world. You understand? Like they have aqueducts, they have crazy advanced civilizations, innocent before proven guilty, things like that. And then,
Sure. So, I mean, yes,
and in
along
Africa,
with other countries or
yeah.
continents.
And when I went to Jamaica, this is what what do I see white people do if there's like a dead animal in the street? We have an entire like organization that comes and
Sure, that's
deals
because we're a
with
wealthy
wildlife.
country. If you went to a poor white country, it might be different.
You could say that. I don't know. I'm not too informed in that area.
Yeah, well, and look
But
again.
but these things I just noticed when I was in Jamaica, man, they threw a tire over a dead cat and just burnt it a lot and just burnt it, and that's how they dealt with it.
Sure. Well, I mean, yeah, but I don't know how much you can make inferences about the rest of Jamaica based on that. That's like Europeans who are like, "Hey, I saw one white guy in America or one American guy do this stupid shit, so now all
Yeah,
Americans are like that."
No, that's true. But like, if it happens in one place, then you can't say that it won't happen in another place throughout. You understand the logic? I'm trying to like, if it happened
Sure.
here,
Yeah,
Well,
if you see it once,
I mean,
it's reasonable to expect it might happen again. Sure.
yeah, absolutely. So, and
Yeah.
just off that, it's like sub-Saharan Africa is like a third world continent.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
well, once you head to South Africa, where I guess they're Boers, the white people that are there, like Johannesburg, it's first world. And
Sure, well,
who lives there?
yes.
Not black people.
Sure, but
white people.
Yeah, but this is a point I would make against like the leftists, far leftists, who say, well, white people like colonized and were genocidal and they held everyone back. It's like, look, white people, the Europeans, it's like Civilization or any video game. It's like Europeans just leveled up the tech tree faster than everyone else and got gunpowder and sailing. Okay, they got it from China. It's like anyone who levels up in technology is going to colonize and kill other people. It's exactly what the Aztecs did to the Tlaxcalans around them. It's exactly what the different, Chinese dynasties did, the Mongolians did. It's like people, human beings, universally will conquer and murder other people around them.
Yeah,
To say it's just like white or something like that.
I agree with that, but England controlled most of the world. And how big is England?
Right.
You understand?
Well,
look how big China is.
Well, Japan. Same with Japan. Japan did the same thing. I mean, Japan was a huge empire up until World War II.
And look who beat them.
Yeah, nuclear bombs. Yeah, look, dude. First off, I appreciate.
And I know it's real surface level to like extrapolate these things, but it's still real. It's history, and I get what they're saying, and it kind of just makes sense on the surface. Maybe if we took more time to study race, maybe we'd come to the conclusion you're at, But with the current regime, we'll never find out.
Right.
We'll never know because.
Well, and that's the thing. Is like, and it's because interesting. You had made the distinction that like the Groypers are not the racial exterminists or even the separatists. They're just sort of this paleo-conservative Christian, kind of nationalist type group.
Yeah, Nick said it himself. The country was the way it was from inception. He kind of wants to keep it like that because if you look, and these guys bring it up all the time, Liberia never conquered, never colonized, yet they have a constitution the same as America, somewhat, and it's a complete shithole. Why is that?
Well, again, it's
it's a
multivariate analysis. Yeah, there's a lot of different factors that go into a lot of things. But I get you.
But
point.
you understand that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, and I'm mostly just again I'm appreciative that you're willing to talk because it's such a interesting situation that I'm in terms of like I grew up. White liberal bubble where it's like, I have all this privilege, so I need to make space. I need to make space for black voices, right? I need to elevate black voices. It's like, okay, well, here I am. I'm elevating a black voice, right? But it's like, well, but actually,
until I agree with the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Then you're the wrong black voice to elevate, and it's like, okay, well, now the whole fucking thing is just doesn't make any sense at this point. And so what seems to be the logical approach thing is like, how about we just talk to people and just hear their perspectives, even if it's something I disagree with or don't fully understand. And, and especially if it's a case of like, again, there's just something of like, if the Groypers were really as bad as like MSNBC says they are, which maybe they are, but like the fact that, you as a black person, have been to their conventions and, you said you don't sense much animosity and whatnot.
There's a lot of Asians, Hispanics,
right.
Black people because we intuitively understand.
Right, and it makes me think that really, again, my perspective, the reason that I want to like kind of have this conversation and create space for people rather than just say, oh, we're like ignore them and censor them and blah 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 whatever. It's like, well, I do think Nick Fuentes is he's fun, he's a character, he's a funny character. And, the fact that he has a diverse audience, or at least, well, I'm not going to deny, you would know better than me. So if you said that audience is diverse, I'm going to take your word for it. And it's like, well, to me, that's that's embodied proof that maybe it's good to create space to have conversations with people who who MSNBC would label as white nationalist, anti-Semitic, fascist extremists. It's like, well, the reality seems to be different. Now, are there people that are like that? Yeah, for sure. And you drew a distinction between them, right? And so, yeah, I'm appreciative of the conversation. There's a part of me that's like, I constantly wanting to push back because I feel an obligation, to do it. Because again, and it's a weird thing because we're having a conversation and it's like, okay, this will go on YouTube and many people could see it. So I have to kind of save face. But on the other hand, it's like, who am I to tell you, well, Nick Fuentes is a white nationalist racist and you're not allowed to support him because you're black. It's like, well, hey, that would be pretty racist, to say that. So
I've had it, when I I was at the MAGA rally and people saw me around Nick and Groypers and they were like, how can you be? And I'm just like, if you don't get it, you don't get it.
That's fair.
Hey, are you recording all of this?
Yeah,
Because you sent it to me, I didn't think twice to record it because I love this conversation, man. That's
sure.
why I'm subscribed to you because I
Hell
can
yeah.
see that you're just you're intellectually intuitive. You want like me, you want to find truth. Maybe you have a threshold. Me, I'm willing to go the distance.
Sure. Sure. Yes. Well, it's conversations like this that kind of help get to that
Like, yeah,
truth.
man, I agree, man. I don't think race has on an individual level, black and white people can get along. But in mass, that's just not happening. There's so
Well,
much.
how many black people voted for Trump in the first and second terms? Didn't he like double the black vote? It's like, well, continue that trend out 10 years from now. Suddenly now it seems like a lot of Hispanic, black, and white people can get along because they're all uniting against the crazy far left.
I I agree with that, but I think that's because right before he lost, he was promising them money, and Obama
Well,
didn't.
with
Obama
like
didn't
COVID stimulus
with the
checks, maybe.
no, not just that. The platinum plan, which I think was specifically for Black Americans, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on this, but I think it was something to help HBCUs and poor Black um, areas or things like that. When Obama ran, he didn't say any of that, but got 98% of the Black vote. You understand?
Yep,
You see,
I think a lot of people make votes based on superficial nonsense, and certainly just well he's black, so I'll vote for him. It's like well that doesn't seem to be that good of an idea, but no, I feel you.
but it's what happens, and you
Agreed.
can and from that, like I've there's some people I grew up around who say racial jokes towards white Americans that you can sense there was animosity, and sometimes you can just sense there was no animosity. But I'm pretty sure you've heard it from your side. I don't know that there would be racial jokes with animosity towards black and Hispanics, and some that weren't. Those people can get, but
Right.
our extremes will
Oh yes.
never see eye to eye.
That's
And
right.
that's
Right. That's right. And so I agree. And so
and,
part
and
of
because and because those extremes exist, just not whether I care or it's immoral or I want them to change. This is just what they feel. It's intuitive to them. We can't. This project we have going on, this melting pot, is not working. And Nick's talking about that when nobody else is. Violent crime is way. And and these things I thought about, man. I just extrapolate. If you just let me go on a small tangent
go
real
for
quick,
it.
just to get my thoughts out. It's like I think I looked at the FBI statistics where when one white guy kills one black guy, one black guy kills five white people. If that like that's what I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but that's what made the Buffalo shooter who shot up those black people in that Buffalo supermarket. He had that information. So did Dylan Roof. Now, I'm not trying to justify that or anything, but this information was well is you can search this up and they see this that they see that their race is being attacked because of their race.
Sure. Well, I think, and that's what a lot of people on the far left, kind of black nationalist thing, will say of like, well, look how many black men are in prison, look how many black men are arrested and whatnot. It's like, you can pick and choose evidence any way you want to tell any story, right?
You
It's
could,
definitely
but
it's definitely more complicated and warrants a
well, I
further
mean,
discussion.
we can go. I think there's racial statistics also on who's more likely to resist arrest, who's more likely
Sure.
to do
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
things.
And there's common
So
sense stuff of like,
then you
well, why are there
then
more?
you'll see why more black people are in
Yeah. Right.
prison.
Exactly.
You
It's
know,
like the people who commit crime are disproportionately black, so naturally there's going to be more the a disproportionate number of people in
of them
prison
in
are going to be
prison, and
black. Right,
people
but
like to also add they can't afford lawyers. A lot of
right, but you can't say that that's because they're black because that's literally the logic that the far left will use when they say there's a wage gap. It's like, well, men make if you add up all the total salary, women make less than men. Therefore, it must be because they're women. It's like, no, there's other reasons for it. It's like,
of
well,
course, yeah.
black people
I mean,
commit
Jordan
more crime
Peterson
than white
talked
people.
upon
It's like, well,
this.
there's reasons.
Oh yeah, of course, man. I'm not. Of course, there's always reasons, but the truth remains. black people commit more crime than white people, and they're a smaller and they're small and they're a minority in the country.
Sure,
I'm
but
pretty sure
those
you heard
reasons
that
are
meme.
reasons are important.
52, 6%, 50, 13%, 50, 13, 50. I've heard these memes all over the time. And when you do the research yourself, you see it. And obviously there, like you said, there's a bunch of reasons, but it doesn't change the fact that 13 does 50.
Sure, but the reasons are important in
Of
trying to
course,
address
of
that.
course, of course, of course.
Yes. Well, and we can go.
I
We
agree.
could go
But
all day in
we go
terms of
all
back and
day,
forth.
yeah,
I know,
man.
I know.
We could just
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm appreciative of having the conversation. I'll have to give it a review once over and just make sure it's all YouTube safe and all that. But
yeah,
um,
go ahead. But if you don't mind, I would
yeah,
love to get this entire. If when you compile it, don't remove anything, the curse words. I would just like to keep this for myself to see how well I did because I want to make a YouTube doing
sure.
book reviews.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
want to.
Sure, 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 sure.
I really appreciate that, man. If you need
Yes.
another donation,
No, 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 no,
I'm
no, 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 no. Trust me, you've donated. 100% of my donations have come from you, so no more is needed from you. So I appreciate it. Is there anything you want to ask or talk about before we end, or?
man, like you should become Christian. I hope through all your philosophy, if
Thank
you
you.
don't like if you do all these if you go through philosophy, you read Niche, you read and it doesn't end up at Jesus Christ, man, I think you went somewhere wrong. Because I forgot I think G.K. Chesterton said something about that as well. All that philosophy, I mean the entire Roman Empire became Christian after, after all the persecutions,
Yeah,
like Saint Paul,
didn't really work out for the West half, but no, I get your point. The Byzantines were able
yeah,
to keep it going.
yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully one day you become Christian, and I hope because you have that European Faustian spirit that you do find that, and I can't wait to see more of your videos, man. Because I know you can't tackle certain subjects because I mean, would you still consider yourself a liberal? Like, would you agree with destiny on most issues?
Uh,
You think?
I like what a lot of what Destiny's doing. I don't know. I always it's hard to find a label. I mean, it's centrist is
Centrist?
it's such a lame term. It's such a lame label though. I'm a PF
No.
Union, so that's what I am.
Okay, I
But
I,
yeah,
I
I'd
need to read
say
some of them.
realistically, I'm a
Probably be
centrist.
like a centrist,
Yeah.
depending on policy per policy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
Not
understand
a
that. It's just
moderate. Like I hate Joe Biden. I hate Chuck Schumer. I hate Mitch McConnell. I hate all the current status quo. But I believe in
yeah,
like unity, unifying values, and I'm very anti-extremist.
yeah. I mean, like like I'm just like your average Catholic. I go to mass. Like in the Catholic sphere, you have some like traditional Catholics are angry, upset with the Pope and things like that. But I think there's some time in history where the extremists need to flourish because, like you see now, the left has gone way too far. So don't be surprised when the extremists on the other side have the megaphone
Exactly. I agree with you
because
100% on that.
the
That's the danger.
because sometimes the way I see it, though, you're not gonna you're not gonna combat extremism with centrism. You're gonna combat extremism with extremism,
Right. That's
and I
exactly
think
why you
and I
gotta
think
fight the far left because otherwise the far right will be the ones who take up
who
the
will take
flag.
power. Well, I think Nick is basically the white American in like 1920s, where the country was still successful. There were obviously racial tensions. It wasn't perfect, but for the most part, people were having big families. The nation was cohesive. Things were better in some sense back then. But now in this basically you can
Well,
prescribe these things to technology, but what I'm talking about is more of like relationships between people
sure,
and in
yeah.
an
There's definitely
individual
some
sense.
statistics that are like in a lot of strange ways, like even like Black Americans
Like,
were
yeah, black Americans were at 70%, 77% children being born out of wedlock. You think these
well
are things are
nowadays in the before they were married most of the
yeah,
time, and things
yeah,
got worse. And you
exactly.
could argue that's war on poverty and all that stuff. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, of
It's a
course,
very
man, of
mainstream
course, man.
perspective. So yeah.
There's so many factors to include. I think, but unless we have the right to talk about, hey, maybe it's genetics, and then you guys, oh my gosh, no, maybe genetics does play a part. How big of a part, we'll never know unless we do we take a deep dive into it.
Right. Well, certainly genetics plays a part in individual differences. That's why siblings can be different. Siblings can be, people who come from the same parents can be very different. And so, even though they have similar genes and whatnot. And like I said, going back earlier, Charles Murray said the guy who's the bell curve, right, or the guy who would bring up these, the genetic differences, points out culture plays a massive role. And so you're right. So it's like we don't know how much the cultural role is, and it's important not to to ignore and censor the conversation so that the only people who get to talk about it are the extremists, right? That's why I like John McWhorter. That's why I like Glenn Lowry. So yeah.
Yeah, because now because I was watching a video of them two talking about it, and I remember John was just like he doesn't know how legit the bell curve is, but he knows black people don't do well on tests.
Sure. Right, and as long as we are all aimed towards the same godly ideal of lifting everyone up, whatever the best way to do that, that's what matters, right?
And I mean, if you were to come out to an AFPAC and you spoke to Nick one-on-one, I think you'd get that sentiment from him.
Well, and
he's obviously going to have his racial views. He also has his religious views, and I think he in the debate he said his religious views are highest because obviously his racial views won't get him to heaven. My racial views won't get me to heaven. Is our religious views, how we treat people, your average Christian.
Daryl Davis is one of my heroes, and it's like if Daryl Davis, a black guy, can go to the KKK and have a conversation and just listen to someone. It's like everyone should be able to do that. Even people who if I think Nick Fuentes is this horrible racist cockroach, which I've said in the past, and I regret because I think it's wrong to call any human being a cockroach, except for maybe sex traffickers and whatnot. Even then, maybe not. But you should be able to. Maybe you should be able to have a conversation with anyone, no matter how much you disagree with them. And in fact, the more you disagree with them, and the more you think that they're immoral, the more it is.
Imperative to want to talk to
them.
Yeah, of course. And then, man, because ultimately, we're Americans.
Amen. See, I like the patriotism. I really do. And like you said, the more the far left goes, the more the far right gives it. So let's be the center right and take up the patriotic flag and say F these, race extremists.
Yeah, because whether I disagree, with my countrymen, you're still my countrymen.
Amen.
I love my country. I love white people. I love black people. I love Hispanics. I just want to see us all do better. And if our conclusions come up to that separate, then that's the road we go through. Then that's the road we take. If that's what's gonna make all of us better together.
Hell yeah.